Easter Sunday, 1975, Hamilton, Ohio.
Yeah, a day you'd expect, family gatherings, maybe some springtime joy.
But it became the scene of something truly horrific, one of America's deadliest family massacres. And that's what we're doing a deep dive into today,
Yeah.
the Ruppert Family Massacre.
Right. We're working primarily from the account titled The Ruppert Family Massacre, Easter Sunday, 1975.txt.
And our goal here isn't just to list the terrible things that happened.
No, not at all. We want to try and understand the background, the family dynamics, the pressures, what could possibly lead to such a devastating event.
Looking at the currents under the surface using this account.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's start with the central figure, James Urban Ruppert, born March 29th, 1934.
And right away, the source paints a picture of a pretty tough childhood.
Yeah, it mentions a turbulent household, a violent father.
That's right. But what seems really formative, according to the text, was his mother's attitude.
How so?
Well, this blatant favoritism towards his older brother, Leonard Jr.
And it wasn't subtle, was it? The account mentions outright neglect, emotional abuse aimed at James.
Yeah, really shocking stuff. His mother apparently made these incredibly cruel remarks.
Like wishing he hadn't been born, wishing for a daughter instead.
Exactly. Imagine hearing that as a child. It sets this foundation of feeling, well, unwanted, devalued.
And it permeated everything, didn't it? There's that detail about the chickens.
Oh, right. The father's chickens, and James had a feather allergy.
But they kept the chickens anyway. It seems like such a small thing, but it speaks volumes, you know?
It really does. Just a sort of constant disregard for his basic well-being, chronic neglect like that. It's corrosive.
And things didn't get better when his father died, which happened when James was 12.
No, tragically not. The source suggests the older brother, Leonard Jr., kind of stepped into that tormentor role.
So one source of negativity is gone, but the pattern just continues with his brother.
It seems that way. Just no consistent support, no stability. It must have had a huge negative impact as he was growing up.
And you see the results, don't you? The account notes his school performance declined.
He was isolated, not made friends.
His self-worth just plummeted. It sounds like he was really struggling.
Immensely. And it culminated in a suicide attempt when he was only 16.
16. Hanged himself with bed sheets, it says, but failed.
Yeah. And the source suggests that after this failure, he sort of resigned himself, accepted this role he felt he'd been given.
The inferior son.
Right, like he stopped believing things could be different for him. It seems this was his only known attempt, too.
And from there, this resentment, especially towards his mother and brother, just kept building.
Understandably, perhaps, when you look at how differently their lives turned out.
James dropped out of college after 2 years.
While Leonard Jr. thrived, electrical engineering degree, successful career.
And he always had their mother's support, didn't he?
Unwavering support, according to the account. The contrast is just so stark.
And then there was the relationship angle. Elma.
Ah, yes. James had dated her, apparently never quite got over her.
And then she marries Leonard Jr.
You can see how that would add another really bitter layer to the resentment. The source explicitly calls it out as a potential motive.
So you've got the interpersonal issues and then the socioeconomic stuff piled on top.
Absolutely. Leonard Jr. had the job at General Electric, the wife, the 8 kids, the house in Fairfield.
All the markers of conventional success.
While James was struggling with unemployment, he trained as a draftsman, but couldn't keep a job.
Still dependent on his mother and even his brother financially.
Yeah, it likely just hammered home that feeling of failure day in, day out. Compared to his brother, he was, in his own eyes maybe, the inferior one.
And amidst all this frustration, he develops this fascination with guns.
A significant one. The account lists them. A .357 Magnum, 2.22 caliber handguns, a .22 rifle.
It's a disturbing detail, his focus shifting towards weapons.
And the routine described frequent drinking, target shooting. It sounds like these became his coping mechanisms.
Maladaptive ones, clearly. For dealing with a toxic family situation and those feelings of failure.
Maybe they gave him a sense of control he felt he lacked elsewhere. It's hard to say for sure, but it fits the pattern.
Then we get to the early 70s. His mother, Charity, issues an ultimatum.
Pay rent or get out.
Maybe she thought it was tough love, motivation.
Perhaps. But given James's situation...
Especially after losing money in the stock market crash around 73, 74.
Exactly. He couldn't pay. So what was meant to maybe spur him on just became this massive source of stress.
Another dead end, seemingly.
Pushing him further into desperation. And it's around this time he asks about buying a silencer.
He didn't buy it, the source says, but just asking? That's a really troubling sign.
A definite escalation in his thinking.
Okay, fast forward to March 29th, 1975. His 41st birthday.
And he's out target shooting cans by the Great Miami River. Seems ordinary enough at the time.
But it later becomes part of the prosecution's case, right?
Yeah.
Showing his familiarity with firearms.
Precisely. It established practice, proficiency, relevant to what happened next.
And then that encounter at the 19th Hole Cocktail Lounge.
He talks to a woman named Wanda Bishop.
Tells her about the eviction threat. And her response.
If you can afford to buy drinks, you can afford to pay rent. Pretty blunt.
Maybe misinterpreted by him. But it seems to hit hard. Because then he says he needs to solve his problem.
Chilling, isn't it? He sees the crisis, the eviction, and knows he needs a solution. But what kind of solution?
And later that night, she asks if he's found one, and he says,
no, not yet. Heavy words looking back.
So Easter Sunday arrives, April 6th, 1975.
Charity isn't feeling well, so the family gathering shifts from lunch to dinner at her house, 635 Minor Avenue.
Leonard Jr. arrives with Elma and their 8 children.
Leonard III, Michael, Thomas, Carol, Ann, David, Teresa, and little John, who's only 4.
The kids are outside doing an Easter egg hunt. A normal family scene.
But James is upstairs, sleeping it off, hungover, detached.
He wakes up around 4 p.m., finds everyone downstairs. Charity's making sloppy joes with Elma.
He's there briefly, then goes back upstairs, says he's going to the shooting range.
It's his guns.
A total deception. And then comes that moment.
Leonard Jr.'s question. So casual. How's the Volkswagen?
But James hears it differently. As a jab. Another dig about his failures.
And the source highlights this as the trigger. It's almost unbelievable.
It just shows how incredibly fragile his mental state must have been. Years of resentment boiling over.
The decision was made. No shooting range.
No. Around 6 p.m., he starts firing. In the kitchen.
Charity first. Shot in the head. Then Leonard Jr., Elma, David, Teresa, Carol. Mostly chest shots initially.
Then he moves into the living room. Anne, Leonard III, Michael, John.
But it doesn't stop there, does it? The account describes something even more systematic.
Yeah. Yes. He walks through the house, methodically shoots each person again in the head.
To make sure they were dead. Finishing off anyone still showing signs of life.
The chilling efficiency. The intent. It's brutal.
And the whole massacre took less than 5 minutes.
5 minutes. 44 shots fired. 40 hits. Staggering speed and violence.
And then, what might be the most unsettling part, he just stays there.
For 3 hours, in the house, with the bodies of his mother, his brother, his sister-in-law, his nieces and nephews.
3 hours. What was going through his mind?
The source says he contemplated suicide, but decided against it.
Because of his religious beliefs? Mortal sin.
That's what the account indicates. It's such a bizarre conflict, isn't it? Capable of that, but held back by religion doctrine, shows a really fractured mindset.
And then finally he calls 911.
Calmly reports a shooting.
Police arrive, and he's just sitting there. On the couch. Hours later.
Just sitting there calmly. A surreal, deeply disturbing image after such extreme violence. A kind of detachment, maybe? Or grim finality?
So, trying to wrap our heads around this.
Yeah.
We've looked at the awful events of that day and the life leading up to it.
11 people killed. His entire immediate family, besides himself. The scale is just immense.
And the source material really paints a picture of this being the culmination of a lifetime.
A lifetime of feeling rejected, neglected, like a failure.
Yeah.
Especially compared to his brother. That dynamic with his mother, it seems to have brewed this intense resentment.
Which finally exploded in the most horrific way imaginable.
Yeah. And that detail, him sitting there for 3 hours, deciding against suicide because it's a mortal sin.
Yeah.
It gives you this really unsettling glimpse into his disturbed thinking at that moment.
It really does. It leaves you thinking, doesn't it?
Definitely. It makes you consider the hidden struggles people face, how family dynamics, those constant comparisons, societal pressures, how they can shape someone's entire life.
And the potential for unseen breaking points.
Right. What can we take away from a tragedy like this? Maybe something about the importance of empathy, of trying to understand, truly understand what might be going on beneath the surface before someone reaches such a point of utter desperation.
A heavy thought to end on, but an important one.